Let's talk about trusts. We've all heard about trusts a great deal. Trust fund babies, I trust you, I trust my neighbors, trust my friends. Yet very few people really understand what trusts are, and reasonably it's kind of a specialty area of law. However, we're going to try and break down a number of elements around trusts in this video. We're going to talk about what are trusts, what are the different types of trusts, what do different types of trusts do, how do we get trusts, how long do trusts last for, what do trusts cost, and we're going to start to look at some of the tax implications of trusts. So let's dive in. There are different types of trusts. First of all, the way to look at trusts is this trust a trust that was created through a will? If it is a trust created through a will, it's known as a will trust or a trust will. The effectiveness of the trust only becomes effective at, spoiler alert, you're dead, it's a will, once you've died. So clearly, a trust formed within a will, knowing that a will only becomes an effective document with the passing of the testator, the person who's written the will. Therefore, the trust that's created within the vehicle of the will only becomes effective after death. These are excellent trusts and can serve a multitude of purposes. However, the benefits of the trusts do not affect you, the person who has arranged this, because clearly you've passed away, you're dead. The second type of trust is called a lifetime trust, or in Latin, an inter vivos trust. This is a trust that is set up now, whilst you are alive. You are what is known as the settlor, the person arranging the trust. And so the benefits of the trust can have meaning to you as well. So there are two types of trusts. There's will trusts and there's lifetime trusts. And it all depends on how that trust is being created. Is it being created through the will, or is it a separate, standalone set of documents and a completely separate entity in its own right? Right? So now we understand the two different ways to get at trusts. Let's talk now about the technically different types of trusts. There are many, many marketing names and industry terms around trusts. There's family trust, family asset protection trust, disabled, vulnerable beneficiaries trust, multitude of different names of trusts. But technically there are only two different types of trusts. In essence, there are discretionary trusts and bare trusts. That's it. So 99% of the time, if you're talking about a lifetime trust, it is in one form or fashion a discretionary trust, meaning your trustees have discretion. Not always. Again, this is a short video just trying to get general terms across, but it's a good starting point for us to have a conversation about things. So knowing that there are two ways to get a trust, you can either have it in a will or you can have it as a standalone entity. What is the difference? Once again, a will trust only becomes effective when the death has occurred, whereas a lifetime trust, the benefits can have meaningful impact upon you and your family whilst you're alive. You also have the extra advantage of knowing that the planning was done. So that's kind of nice. It's not left to hope or chance or interpretation. You've got everything set out now whilst you're alive. Further tidbit is, whilst wills can and do get contested from time to time, it is very, very difficult to contest a trust because it was set up in your life. You did purposely and with intention arrange this trust. It's very hard for anybody to argue that wasn't your intentions when clearly it was. So let's talk now about the ways to go about getting a trust. This is interesting. A will trust is an unregulated activity in the United Kingdom. So will writers, solicitors, anybody with some experience and understanding of the different forms of software out there these days, or even freehand, can write a will trust. You, the individual, could write a will trust if you have the technical skills to do so. And that's fine. Whereas a lifetime trust is a regulated activity. You will need to seek out a regulated individual, typically a solicitor, for the actual creation of the trust. However, advice on trusts can be conducted by another professional who is not regulated, such as a professional will writer. we're capable of advising on trusts and helping you to understand some of the different elements around them. Of course, you do want to deal with a professional, someone who knows what they're talking about. So what are the things that a trust does that is meaningful to you whilst you're alive? Well, before we go there, let's actually look at what a trust actually does in the main. So the trust is a legal vehicle that allows you to transfer the ownership of X, of a house or a painting or a fancy car, any kind of asset that can be named and owned can be placed into a trust. And so you're transferring the legal ownership of this asset to the trustees. And without going into this in any great depth, a trustee needs to be, it's all in the title, trustworthy, that they will adhere to your wishes in relation to the trust that you're setting up. So the trustee now has the legal ownership of this, but only as a trustee of the trust. The beneficial ownership is that of the trust, and that is what goes down to the beneficiaries. So how does this work? Well, it's real simple. Let's say this is my pen. It's my pen. If you wanted to sue me in court of law, and I own the pen like so, you could win the pen from me. Easy, right? Or it's my car, and the brakes on my car, are poor, and I make a mistake and go through. Now let's say this is a trust. It's a piece of document, piece of paper. Now I put the pen in a trust, right? And so you want to sue me for this pen. Yet I simply turn around and say, I don't own the pen. The trust owns the pen, right? So that's the big difference. The big difference is that whilst you don't have the actual legal ownership of this item any longer, the trust does. And therefore, if you don't own it, I can't take it from you. That's really kind of the key principle here. So we all spend our entire lives trying to gather assets, raise families, have a good life. Yet at the end of our lives, after we spend a whole lifetime acquiring assets, strangely, it's actually beneficial to you and your family if you don't own anything, or very little. And the reason for that is simple. As we get older, and life goes like this, predation of all sorts starts to happen around us. You could get entangled in a lawsuit. You could get a divorce. You could get care fees. You could have all kinds of problems. We'll talk about this in a minute. Yet if you don't own assets, then nobody can take them from you, right? It's like if somebody wanted to sue me for Euro Disney. Don't own it. You can't really take it from me. Make sense? So the idea is, after spending our entire lives in the pursuit of gain and greater assets, why not have a conversation around lifetime trusts with a view of migrating assets into trusts and removing yourself from titular ownership? In so doing, you're very likely going to be able to protect that asset from the various threats that are going to occur as we age.